So we are online أكيد أول مرة نسوي online مباشر. ضياء can you تقولي لهم خلاص نحن online so we're online Elaine. Okay, we'll start and first of all I just want to say there is no word could describe how grateful I am that you have given us your time to come and to be with us in this session. It's great pleasure to see new faces and of course the regular faces too. And I know people came from Saudi, من Kuwait, طبعا من Abu Dhabi, and all over. So we really appreciate that. And briefly, we're going to talk today your relationship with your childhood. And Elaine, I'm going just to brief a little bit about Elaine. Elaine is a psychotherapist, worked in her field for more than 50 years all over the world. She lived in different parts, and you lived in Dubai for 20 years, maybe more, no? 23 years, yeah. And she has a lot of experience in the Arab world, and she has worked with a lot of Arab women. And now she's based in New York, but she's studying. And I think that is one of the things that we get impressed because you went and studied decoration for a change. Now you're studying writing. And that's you never fail to amuse us, Elaine, with your things, really. And Elaine, I've known her for 23 years. No, more, is it? And I remember the first time I met you, and we became friends, and you're my mentor, and we never lost touch since then. And I still learn a lot from you, and I consider myself your student, and I would not say a school. You are life, and you're a university of life that we learn so much. And we decided to do sessions with Elaine because I think we had discussion with Fatma and with Wadi'a, and we said, actually Fatma said last year, how could we not take advantage of Elaine's knowledge and wisdom? Then, I've been thinking about it, and we did few videos, and then Wadi'a was saying, so since then, we are bombarding her with so many videos and sessions and all that. So thank you, Elaine. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And I think we're going to start straight away because we have prayer time. We will do it at 6:45, so we have a bit of time. So let's start. I mean, today we're going to talk basically, we are the result of our childhood, plus other things, right?
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yes, I mean, we're made up of many things, but all of our experiences are the things that give us our emotional health, sometimes even our physical health, and many of these things are coming from our childhood experiences, both good and bad experiences. And so in our relationship with our childhood, as we sit here now as adult women, we have a combination of a kind of emotional things that we brought to this day with us, and also memories, which is our thinking, our cognitive part. And so when we talk about our relationship with our childhood, we're talking about both things, the emotional things that we brought and also our memories. And so we're going to use this hours together to really examine in your own lives what emotions you might have brought, and also what memories you might have brought. We are going to invite you to share some of your what comes up. However, of course, there's no obligation in any way to share if you don't feel comfortable. So we'll just go along. This is a pretty casual situation, and hopefully some things will kind of come up for you, and you will maybe come to some things that you already know what your relationship is with your childhood, but I think I'm hoping that I can give you a few new ways to think about it, and so that you have choices about, I can think this way about it or that way about it. I can feel this way about it or that way about it. And because we all know life is not so simple that it's just one way. And when we go through, both Hala and I are going to share some of our own life emotions and experiences to show that it's never quite straightforward. But it's worth trying to tear it apart a little bit. So actually this whole session is made up of questions.
Yes.
And the first, at least a good portion of it is made up of questions. And the last part, we are hoping that we can make some suggestions. So the first question is, how do you actually feel right now about your childhood? Your feel means emotional. I'm going to tell you that in psychology there are many theories, but one idea is that there are 5 basic emotions, and you have a handout that shows them. They're called mad, glad, sad, afraid, ashamed. Now there's some new research that said that they've added disgusted.
Oh, interesting.
Which they decided was something not quite the same as any of these others. The reason that we say these are the basic emotions is that they all have a body reaction. Like if you're glad, your face changes, your face softens,
features,
you
yes.
smile. If you're angry, most people can tell,
Yes.
because
Your eyes change.
Your complexion changes. If you're afraid, definitely the body has a big reaction. If you're ashamed, we often feel blushed and you want to go like this. And so each one of these 5 basic emotions, and if we add disgust, I guess, we could say it's like, ugh.
Yes, exactly.
That we go. So these emotions, the body actually creates emotion.
And the body reacts with their emotion. And I just want to say something. If you didn't get the question, please let me know. We can explain more. Because these are something new. And for me, even when we discussed it, there are things that I had to ask more about it. So if you feel you want us to elaborate, just tell us and we will talk more. So the ones that you said, it's all about emotions that your body reacts. So when you are happy, your body reacts in happiness. And when you're upset or when you're sad or whatever emotions we have. So the question is, what is your feeling now? Yes.
Do you mean like physically how my body react, or internally how my body react?
Some
like
of it is
posture or something internal?
I think that internally, we know that when we experience happiness, that something changes in our chemistry of our brain. I think
Yes.
when we experience fear, something changes.
adrenaline
You
and all
know,
that.
many parts of our physical system. Sometimes those show on the outside. Sometimes they don't show on the outside. Depends on how
So-
kind of.
We want them to say what is their feeling, like إحساسكم الحين, you're feeling now when you think of your childhood,
So
not what you felt then. Yes. What's the age? We were just
So-
coming.
so-
yeah.
we're going to look at right now. Then we're going to look at when you were 8 years old.
No, it's أول واحد, the first one,
Is right.
is right now. So what I feel, like if I go back as Hala, what do I feel when I think of my childhood?
Yeah. Just
Do you want me to tell you an example or you want to do it?
go ahead.
I feel happy and sad. Yes, you can. It's not the memory, it's what you feel.
Feel what the
مو
feeling,
شو
the
تتذكرون.
actual emotion.
These you want to,
These are-
yes, yes, that will
So
help.
when you look at the list, and
Anything you feel now. Yeah. So what you're, I want to go back to that point.
but
What you're feeling
proud,
now.
it's very interesting. Something like feeling proud can be a part of feeling glad, but proud is actually not an emotion. Proud is a thought. It's not a feeling. This is why we have to stick to these.
Joy.
Yeah.
Joy. It's glad.
Joy is glad.
Joy is glad.
Yeah.
So these are basic names we have given, which is not us. Yani. It's been all the feelings or it goes under it.
So I would tell you, don't overthink it too much. Don't even think about it hardly at all. Just look at the page
And write and say it.
and just put a check, maybe 2 checks, because often we have 2 feelings at the same time. Just do that. And then we're going to go back after a little bit.
So now what you feel when you were about your childhood. Now. Yes, Asya.
Yeah,
Now.
So don't
Yeah.
think too hard. Just do.
Okay. The
Okay.
second,
Then the second thing starts to have the combination of memory. So if I said to you, without too much thinking, what did you feel when you were 8 years old? Because I would tell you from my own life that if you ask me what I feel right this minute, I would say I feel some combination of glad and sad. I have quite a lot of sadness about things that were lost. That's right now. But when I was 8 years old, I was scared.
so number 1 is now what you feel about your childhood.
And so
Number 2 is when you were 8. Around 8. It doesn't have to be on that day.
when you were 8,
When I was 8, I think I was a very joyful girl. I was always jumping, as now I'm doing it the same. But I think I was confused because of my school complication of dyslexia. So a lot of confusion were there with this age, because that's when you go to school, and I felt fear. I felt full of joy, so the glad.
And,
Confusion.
and confusion is often, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but sometimes when we feel ourselves different and we don't know what's going on, we actually feel ashamed because we're
Yeah.
not the same as other kids.
Yeah, I think that's when you brought up in a house, most of us compared. Your brother is better at school, so he's more clever, and your sister and your cousin, and then you go into feeling so less, and so maybe the word is stupid, or you know, when you go, I go back. Oh, I mean, I could sit here and talk about a lot of things, and I'm sure all of us, when we were 8. Do you want to share if you want to have anything? Yes.
Ashamed or mad if you are angry about things?
Sometimes angry, sometimes very
Especially
angry.
like, you know, in our communities, like always they segregate girls and boys, and you want to go like out and run, but because you are girls. So this is not feeling like ashamed. It's just mad of that.
Sometimes it's just plain mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody has the same feelings.
Yeah, frustration.
And frustrated, fed up, feeling tied down. Yeah. And so then the third thing I'd like you to do is make a little tick on something about how you felt at 14. Because usually at 8,
Look at Sahia.
we
She's
have
going
different
crazy.
feeling. And
Yeah.
by 14, we've decided something else.
So again, now 8, 14. And it's okay to go through different emotions, because now we're taking you back. And that's the whole point of today, that you should not feel comfortable. Yes, I mean, how are you going to grow if you don't feel comfortable? So I wanted to see if anybody just want to share about 8 years old. If you have anything anybody wants to add. Hanu, if you want to say something about 8 years old.
Well, when you are mentioning the number, I'm really finding it hard to go back. I'm getting a glimpse of memories, but I think, I believe that I've been a combination of glad and ashamed, both. And now at 14, I've been writing, I'm a teenager. I can't even remember which school period I was in. Trying to fit and trying to be the friend the girls wanted to be around, to be the cool and fun. Trying to please. I've been a pleaser at that age. Yet I remember being mad. I'm always not accepting so easy. But in the same way, I've been forcing myself to please them.
Thank you.
So 14. What do you remember, Elaine, about 14?
I went from being quite afraid in my household because there was there was a lot of arguing, and I didn't understand it at 8. By 14, I understood it very well, and I was furious. I was furious that my parents didn't know how to behave properly.
So it will go to mad.
And so it wasn't that I was rebellious. It was that I was angry at the fact that my surroundings were not peaceful. And as any good 14-year-old, the world was supposed to all be about me.
Yeah,
And,
when we were, yeah.
And yet, it wasn't in that kind of instance. So, and then as we go on through the session here, I'd like to help you to understand why these emotions actually make you who you are today. My my being that angry 14-year-old is who you're looking at right this minute.
Yeah.
That anger was very good for me.
So it gave you a positive push.
Yeah, it pushed me. It
Pushed
pushed
you,
me.
yeah.
And so we're not looking at these things as, oh, you know, those are all very bad emotions. I want things to be, you know, I wouldn't like to say that I had this kind of emotion or that, you know, because many people look at that list and say, they're all negative except glad. But really, they're not. They're not negative. These emotions are messages. They're messages from your system so that you start to think. I mean, if you're afraid, you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision to run out the place,
Or to be stuck there.
or be stuck there, or fight, or do what you're going to do. If you're being shamed, you
Yeah.
have to decide what you're going to do.
So these are triggers for your next move.
Yes.
And you can choose which one you want. I mean, obviously we did choose where we are now because of our emotions when we were young.
So when you're looking at those emotions, do think about how at 8, so often the ones that are at 8 are just as powerful as the ones that are at 14. For some people it's this way, some people it's that way. But these are the things that start to make you who you are. And these emotions do push, pull, and sometimes get you so stuck you don't move for 10 years.
It's funny because somebody called a few weeks back asking, and she was very hesitant and she was so nervous. She wanted to come to one of our trips, and then she said, because of the fear my father had put in me, she was older than me. She said, until today, I cannot make a decision and I'm hesitant. So she's stuck there. Now, for me, when I was 14, you know, you made me think, because I always been a very thinker. Like, I used to really not accept everything. Everything my mother said, it had to be torn apart, disgusted, and not accepted. And my mother used to go crazy with me because I just don't take what you just tell me. You need to explain to me. And a lot of things that we learned, I remember when I was 14, I had a lot of fun. I mean, all my childhood, I was exact the opposite. My father, my mother let me play with everybody. Was always outside on my bicycle and places. But remembering 14, you're growing up, and I still remember sitting with Hamid and talking to him about things and discussing. Hamid's my brother. And again, I was angry, but when I look at who I was always joyful. But then that deep thinking is the one pushed me to where I am today.
Because I think when we do have some anger, what it helps us do is it helps us to say, why is it like this? And how can, and we're asking ourselves, you know, whenever we ask why is something, there's some anger in there someplace.
Yeah.
And we ask ourselves, you know, why is it like this? I don't like this. And this is the beginning of how we start to say, I'm not having my life like this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Could it be also curious, not mad or anger?
Yeah. Because
Asking because you are curious to know more.
yeah, I think that curious is sometimes based in why, and sometimes it's how, which is based in more in the emotion of fear. Because in fear, we sometimes are saying, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? How do I escape, you know?
That's very interesting, Elaine. That's really interesting because I think throughout my life, being in 20s and all, how can I set myself free was the main, and I don't mean set myself free, just even how to change my mind, how to change my life. And I kept thinking, it has been since childhood. How is very important. It's very interesting. And I mean,
You know, when we give these simple guidelines of, 5 emotions, in a way, it would be so nice if life was that simple. But life is not that simple, and there's the combination of, strong, pure emotion. Sometimes it's very combined, very mixed up, all kinds mixed up together. But at the same time, and this is what we're going to talk about next after the prayer, is that we also have thinking the whole time. And thinking is our intellect that's asking us, why do I feel like this? We use our intellect to try to sort what we don't understand out.
yeah.
And so the thing is sometimes we are taught very much that you're not supposed to feel anything. I mean, good girls should not
Behave
look
in a certain way.
They should not be angry. They should
think
not
you're
be
right,
too happy, not too, wild. They should not be.
Yeah, you have to be restricted.
And they
certain-
shouldn't cry too much, and so they shouldn't be too sad. Women have been taught to really try not to have as many emotions at all, like try to be a blank.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we're not a blank. We just haven't been given the opportunity to actually name what our emotion is. And so we're very out of touch with it.
I just want to pause. We have not given the chance to name our emotions. And I think this is what we're doing today. And it's painful. I don't want to cry. It's deep. And I think it's courageous if we just go through this, as simple as it sounds, as difficult as it is to go back, because I think a lot of women and girls in our community has been caged culturally. You're not supposed to laugh loud. You're not supposed to do this. And like you said, there are things, I think you're the most were restricted because your father comes from a diplomat background. So you have to behave goody good and proper. And you cannot do this and you cannot do that. And I don't envy that because I was exact opposite.
So even though this little page is so simple, I would tell you that at my age, whenever I feel confused, or when I feel unsettled, I make myself name one of these things.
Wow. Yeah.
I say to myself, all right, dig down, dig down.
She wants to add something and then we have only 5 minutes to the prayer.
Yeah, I have just a question. I was wondering because the concept of the good girl, I had to put myself in that box, the good girl box. And I was wondering because probably 3 years ago when I started, all of a sudden I realized I had a very good childhood, but it was my teenage. So then it brought a lot of anger and madness. Now I'm wondering, does the mind to protect me during that time from going through those emotions, I put myself in denial stage? Because if you asked me before 3 years ago, I would say, no, I'm very grateful. I had the perfect childhood. But then when we started some of the session and some of the trips, I realized there is a lot of true negative emotions. Deep down, yeah. So I'm wondering, like, was it a protective mechanism to be in that denial? Because totally it was different answer. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would say I'm very grateful, I was very pleased, I had a great childhood. Now when you ask me, or since 3 years, I'm trying to get to be in peace with whatever those emotions, but I'm just wondering, what was this? Is it the denial? Is it?
I would say that it's not denial. You probably did have parts of your childhood that were very happy and safe and things like that. And then what in this kind of work, it's not that we're saying, oh, everyone had a terrible time, or, oh, no. Everybody had good things that happened to them. They felt good. They felt loved. They felt protected and joy and things like that. All we're doing here is that we're expanding the picture, because our relationship with our childhood, it's like in any other relationship. You have to know the whole picture, not just the little piece that you like, not just the little part, but the ups and the downs and the good parts and the bad parts. When you know that, then you know yourself better. We all have very good forgetting mechanisms. Forgetting.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're way better at forgetting than we are remembering, actually, if you want to know the truth of it. And we are our systems know what to store away somewhere.
Yeah, and block.
And block off, because too painful to deal with it. Put it off on a nice shelf somewhere.
Yeah. We have 2 minutes. Huh?
Okay. One more question and then we'll stop.
While we're talking, it's not as much as our system is shutting it. We were not allowed even to express it. I keep hearing that, say Alhamdulillah, you are much better than Fulan and Fulana. You have a lot. What you are complaining about? How dare you would complain? You have a good house, you have a good family, you have a good roof, you've been provided with such and such. So I think it was shutting down system more than we are living in denial. We were not allowed even to name it or to recognize it either.
I think that's a very good point. And maybe we'll stop just now for prayer.
Prayer. So it's 15 minutes, please. تكرمون الحمامات هني سيادات الصلاة هناك. And we'll come back. I'm sure you'll have a lot to think about. I'll just add something, and then we will take the break. Is that it doesn't mean I'm ungrateful if I name my feelings and I'm sad or upset or even happy about something. It doesn't mean that, yes, alhamdulillah, I have a house, alhamdulillah, but it doesn't mean that I should shut down my feelings. It doesn't make me ungrateful. Anyway, thank you, and we'll be back soon. ليش بلحظة؟ رجعنا لكم بعد الصلاة و we're going to start again. I mean, we're not going to start again. We're going to continue. And must do online? We're not online. Can you put your phone on silent, please, if you don't mind?
Are these are echoing?
Yes, but because the other one they said they could not hear you well.
Oh,
So this is much better. Okay. Back again online, and we are going to continue our very deep, important questions to oneself. So today we're inviting you all to go inside and allow yourself. Sorry. Hassan, I don't know why this is happening. Maybe we need to put it off. Okay. نسألهم ليش قاعد يستوي شي؟ Okay. So my apologies. This it's coming again. So is it better now? Hopefully. I know it is very difficult sometimes to allow ourselves to open a part that we never thought about, and maybe it's a beautiful part that we forgot. And maybe it's a very sad, and maybe it's fun. There are a lot of things in our memories and our subconscious that we didn't maybe get to see or get to know. So today is if we could just open the door, even a bit, شوية, and then maybe slowly, tomorrow, after a week, after a month, maybe after a year, and then we could see more and more. In the end, what we're trying to do, Elaine, is to have a better present and future. It's not just to dig pain and sadness. It is to have a peace of mind, راحة البال. So I'll give it.
in this section, we're going to look at memories. And I want you to think about if you had a memory of when you were 8, what would it be? Just think of that, like that. And does it come from a photograph? Does it come from a story?
Yeah.
Does
I
it
can't
come-
hear you very well. Maybe you can talk louder.
Or sometimes we have a little flash. Sometimes we have a great, big, complete story with all the color and all of the sounds and everything. Memory is many, many, many things. It's not just one thing. So when I said to you, what do you remember when you were 8? It's interesting to think, do I really remember that? Or is that photo that I saw, you know?
Or you made it up.
Or sometimes we make it up. Sometimes I say, what is your memory at 8? And you might have blank. Nothing. Can't remember a thing. Or you might have a memory around that time that you've thought about practically every day of your life. That haunts you from day to day to day to day. So, you know, memories are not reliable because they can be partly things that we were partly told, or things that we
thought it is, and it was
yeah.
because we were kids.
because
don't.
I assure you, if you talk to anybody that has a sibling, a brother or sister that's close in age, and if you say, do you remember, they'll look at you like, what? They don't even know, they sometimes don't even know what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or they will be telling a big story, and you'll be going, where was I?
I would give you a story of mine in this side. Now, when I was a kid, and I shared not many times this story, around 8, 10, maybe. So I was laying down with my cousin, and she's my same age. And we were talking and we were discussing, the 8 years old. Then she said to me, Hala, your family think you are crazy. I still remember how painful and disturbing and confusing for me when I was 8. That day, everything collapsed. She said, they all think you're crazy. For the past years, everything my mother will do or my brother will do will say, oh, because she thinks I'm crazy. So that's why she's saying this. I was a kid. I could not understand. Years, if somebody just said, you're crazy, and I was like, how could, and I would be offended, and I'll get sensitive, and I remember that day, my whole world got shattered. Years. It took so much from me to have peace and learn that it's okay. Until I met my cousin a few years back. And I told her, do you remember you did this and you said this? She says, no. I said that to you? And I'm like, thank you very much. She said, I told you this? I said, excuse me? You destroyed my life, my thoughts, and you don't even remember. For years of therapy with you and myself, I came to know that I'm not crazy, and actually craziness is fun.
So this is a good example of, we're very selective about what we remember, and we often do remember something that someone, I can tell a similar story of, an uncle once teased me and implied that I was not very good at something. Sweeping, I think I was doing. I wasn't good at sweeping. And for years, it's the same kind of thing. This kind of, if somebody teases me, I don't know if they're really seriously teasing me. I get very ashamed and start to question, maybe I don't know how to sweep.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't.
See,
I was 8.
but for us in that age was a huge thing. Now you will laugh at it. But for a kid, so do you have anything, Intisar, you want to share? Mona, you want to share something you remember when you were 8? Anyone else wants to share? Yes, Iman.
I have a cousin who is the same age as me. She passed away 9 years ago. Allah yarhamha. She's very she's like Cinderella, mashallah. She was very pretty, very shiny. She likes to laugh and to run and to play, and all the family compared us. I'm very shy. I'm not beautiful as her. I'm not joyful as her. I used to. We were very close, but I used to feel jealous because they always compare us.
Compared.
Um, and subhanallah, they always said, even in very early ages, her name is Ahud, Allah yarhamha. Ahud will get married very soon, but Iman, we don't believe in you will get married.
Wow.
Maybe at that time, I've never um, thought about it. But what happened that Ahud, Allah yarhamha, got married when she was in high school, and she had 6 children. And when she had her sixth baby birth, she passed away 10 days after.
Oh.
And I'm not married yet.
Yeah.
But subhanallah, I always think it's not yani, how a joyful and lightful person ends up by passing away and leaving 6 children. Um, it, it's not fair. Allah yarhamha. But yeah, sometimes family members say things that always kept in your inside you, even if you didn't think about it, or even if you didn't express it anyhow. I've never expressed this any time before, but I just remember it very. As I'm zooming in this situation, and I'm seeing it with all the aspects, and it's like a scenario which is I can see it again. Yeah, it happened.
Don't you see how interesting it is that now your mind is opening up and remembering things, and some things that you never thought about, it came up? We'll just continue now.
I think that
Thank you for sharing, Iman. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. We really
Indeed.
appreciate it.
I think this is, most of us, I mean, we just say 8, could be 9, could be 7, could be 10, doesn't matter. Most of us do have a really significant memory that started to either put doubts in our mind or about who we are, or it frightened us. We didn't, because when you're a child, it's very hard to figure out what the adult world is actually doing. And so those memories, we often carry, if we don't feel good enough, it's usually because somebody said something.
Something, absolutely.
You know, there was some message from somewhere. It doesn't have to be from parents, doesn't have to be, it can be really anybody. It can be, you know, a memory that you could be on the schoolyard, you know, at
Somebody
school.
says something.
And somebody says something and is bullying you or is mean. And you, to some extent, you start to believe what, because children believe what the outside world tells them.
Yeah, because we do believe they're
Now,
the authority.
when you're 14, you start going, I wonder if the outside world knows what it's talking about. You know, you start to question, but by that time, many things are already set in place about how you feel about yourself, what you've been told about who you are, and then you have to start unraveling all this as you move into adolescence and into adulthood. I'm sorry.
How can we distinguish between memory and emotion?
Because, you know, thinking and emotion, we say that they're split, but they're not. They're not really. I mean, what? The emotions, there are physiologically, there are places where emotions reside in the brain, and there's emotions where cognitive thinking, memory are stored. But our brain doesn't work like, okay, this piece does that and that. You know, it's a big system, right? And so the system is all entangled. We're only talking about it like it's separate, just so that we can start to think about it in different kinds of ways. It's not really separate. It's, in fact, whenever we think something, we have an emotional response. And whenever we have an emotional response, we think something.
It's not working. I'll just do the other one, yes. Yeah, I think I'll do this.
Sorry.
So one of the things that I think is very interesting is how we actually remember stories we were told. Like you're saying you remember what was said to you.
Yeah,
It's not what happened.
And sometimes, as I say, we see a photograph and we see that, you know, we interpret something from that, you know, that the little girl that's doing this instead of feeling, smiling. So it's not to worry about whether memory is true or not true. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. It's not important. What's really important is if something comes back to you in some kind of a little flash
Or vision.
yeah,
Or
it doesn't mean that it was entirely accurate, but it's definitely, there's a crumb in there somewhere that's true.
so
Otherwise, your brain would not make that up. Now, whether you misinterpreted it, and there's all kinds of other things that went on, okay. But trust that if you have a memory, there's something in it.
No, I mean, I think one of the things, Elaine, the memory is the movie. You know, I remember I was swimming in the sea. Then you think, what is the emotion came with that memory? So in a way, it comes together, but then it is individual.
Yes.
Like, it's a video. It is whether it's a picture or it's a video, or it's like if you really just go now back and remember one thing, jumped out of the tree. Then you think, what did I feel when I jumped? So I think it is.
So, in psychology, we very much believe that we remember when it's time to remember.
Or we want to remember?
No, when it's time, not when we want to. We can't, we can say, oh, come on, but our systems know when to keep things in storage and when to bring them out. So, well, sometimes there's a trigger, and many, so what we know is that there's no right or wrong time for a memory to come out from childhood. You will know yourself if you're ready to do what's called memory work. And memory work is where you actively start to research your own life, your own past, where you actively start to talk to people and say, what do you remember when I was 8? What do you remember when I was 8? Ask everybody that was there that you could still talk to. Very often you go through we encourage people to get photo albums and really stare at yourself all through you'll be amazed all the things that start to
So I
arise.
think if we open the door,
If you open
if
the
we
door,
allow and open the door, and not, I think it is very scary sometimes.
and this is why there's a right time to do it and not a right time to do it. And you will know within yourself when is right and when is not right. Like, quite frankly, the more mature you are, the more age you have, the it's not easier to do, but it might be less uncomfortable to do.
Because you have the tools to
Yes,
help
you have tools
You
to-
learn through the
Yeah.
years that, so if I felt, okay, I could do this and I could do this and I can think of this or I can call somebody,
So you can imagine that, if somebody who's 18 and they've had a very, very difficult time when they were 8, they haven't built up enough resources yet to really be able to use that memory and heal from those memories and use those memories in a good way. When you're 30, you're a lot better. And I mean, it's just my observation from my own practice that many people, sometimes when they have their first child, sometimes when they have, when they're sort of 30-ish, somehow they become ready.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just, there's enough maturity and enough,
And I think one of the reasons because you get tired and you get really, say, whether if you're depressed or confused, when you're younger, you have patience or you don't understand. The more you're stuck in it, it's draining. So that's why you just say, it's time for me to fix this.
so.
Okay.
The main thing is that if you have great big blanks, or you have things that haunt you, things that keep coming back to you over and over and over again, then that probably is a bit of a signal to say, maybe time to do some memory work. And this, I ask people to interview their sisters, their this, that, but don't ask for their help. Because they're going to have their own version of what went on, and that's not necessarily the truth. That's not
It's their version.
It's their truth. It's their truth, but not yours. These are just little ways of digging in the gold mine, and this is your sort of doing your research.
I think it is like if we look at something, I look at it from this way, and then Manal looks
Yeah.
at it from that side, and then one says, so everybody sees the same thing, but in different angle. And that's when we are with our families or sisters or brother.
So, and then it's about sharing what you find. When you dig up a memory, good ones and bad ones that are painful, hurtful, and very anger producing, very fearful, those are the ones that you need to share. First, the best place to share and to get going on it is in a journal. Write it down in a journal so that you're talking to yourself about it. You're write the whole memory down as best as you can and respond to it. Say how you feel. Use the 5 emotions and kind of say how you feel.
And it's very private, so if somebody doesn't really want to share, you just have to write it down and write your emotions. And
if you find that in the journal, somehow you become to peace with this new memory, then fine, you've done your work. If it actually is
bothering.
not going to sleep and not sort of being able to let it go, then you have to find either the very exactly good friend that you can share it with, who will not judge anything, or you could see a professional counselor. Because the sharing is the actual part. The digging up is the research work, but the real work of memory, of the emotional impact of memory, is sharing. But we have to be always very careful who we share.
Who we share with, yes.
Because when we share with somebody who would say, that didn't happen.
Are you silly?
Yeah.
What you yeah.
Then, and you know already who that would be in your life, so don't choose that
Yeah.
person.
It's very important because really, when you just say something to someone and they really judge you, that's already another trauma. Like you cannot even open your heart.
Then you've double hurt yourself.
Yes.
So
yes.
no, and if you do not feel that it is time to do this research, don't judge yourself. Wait. The time will come.
Yeah, I think that you need to judge the person in front of you has to be patient. I mean, you've been very patient with me. I mean, especially the first few years I came to you. I mean, you told me I was driving you crazy because I would not tell you much and you had to, but she was not judging. So I used to think this is silly or this is such a bad thing I have done, and she will just say, okay, you're human. And I was like, is that simple? Is that? And I was like for 10, 15 years eating my heart out, and this person sits in front of me and think, so what? As you do, like, yeah.
So don't be impatient with yourself, but you know, and it's equally important to dig up, research and dig up good memories, bad ones. It isn't like we're on some witch hunt. This is not what this is. This is not about like, I'm going to find somebody here that really wrecked my life.
Then we're blaming it.
Yeah, then we're just blaming. No, we don't need to do that. What we're really doing is we're honoring the little glimpses of memory that tell us, you know, when something comes out of your memory bank, as we sort of say, though it's not a bank as far as I know, you know, when it comes out, it is trying to say, yoo-hoo, I'm here. Would you like to have a little chat with me? Because that's you talking to you. Memory is our own way of having an internal dialogue. And when you really think of it, I mean, every minute of our life, we're having, you know, you remembered where you parked your car. I mean, we're always in the state of remembering, always, every minute, all the time. It's just that sometimes we can remember where we parked the car. Sometimes I can't. We can remember that because there's no emotional content, except if you can't find it.
Yes.
If you can't find your car, it's
Then you have an emotion.
Then you have a big emotion. But, you know, it's usually things about interactions in our lives that are the things that confuse us and we have to store up because we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So how could you elaborate more how we honor bad memories? How would I honor that bad? Because it's easy to honor the positive one.
Well,
You mean like to respect that thing and say, you know, that is a part of me?
I think that step of coming to a place, and I was going to talk about this a little bit further along, So maybe I'll go back to your question. Remind me
Yeah.
again if I don't answer it. So the third question that we want to look at is, how were you treated as a child?
Ooh.
How were you treated?
How you were treated as a child.
You know, we're treated not only in our family.
And differently from each person.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we can be treated one way by our father, one way by our mother, way by our sibling. We can be treated one way by our neighbor. We can be treated
Teacher.
another by our teachers, by the kids that we play with. I mean, there's many things that. So you could have a very nice, you know, loving family and be bullied at school like crazy.
Yep.
Or you could have a very nice group of friends at school and have some very challenging times with one sibling who is very jealous of you or something of that. Or you might have had a very challenging relationship with your mom.
Yeah.
Or even with your father or your father. This creates the atmosphere. It's like the air that children breathe.
Yep.
This is the atmosphere. And so sometimes we are, so to speak, smothered so that we
Suffocate.
can't have a voice. We can't, we're so protected that we aren't given any chance to explore life.
Which was with Aisha because you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
You're not
because
supposed to.
and certainly lots of times in your culture, girls were very protected, highly protected, which made it very difficult for them to explore and to find out who they are. They only could find out what they were told from their inside their house. Then some people, and this can actually happen in your community, children can be completely ignored.
Yes.
Just, you know,
Nobody's giving you the attention.
nobody gives you any attention at all. They don't. It's not that they are abused.
So are you the invisible?
Sometimes you can be the invisible, and you know,
Interesting.
there might be hundreds of reasons why that went on, but still, being ignored is being adored. Then sometimes there's even abuse. You know, there's verbal abuse, lots of telling off, lots of you're stupid, you can't do anything right, blah, blah, blah. Or there
physical
can be
abuse.
very emotional abuse,
Yeah.
which is very complicated relationship where children are made to feel guilty and fearful and never like they're good enough.
Yeah.
So they never meet the things their parents expect. And so that child is actually being abused, but it's very subtle. It's not like hitting.
Yeah.
Sometimes hitting, though it's not a good thing, is more understandable to a child than these other kinds of emotional abuse
Yes.
and verbal abuse, because the child doesn't actually know what's going on much. And one of the things that in this atmosphere, and when you start to look at you know, your memories, one of the things that you're going to dig up is that maybe the truth is you were ignored, maybe you were smothered, maybe you were abused, and
Or pampered.
to death.
Spoiled.
Yeah, and all of that is affecting who you are today.
Yeah.
You're still reacting at some level to whatever that was about.
So the question is how you were treated when you were a kid.
How were you treated?
Anybody أمل أنا أصلا كنت ناوية أقول لك هل أنت مرتاحة في مكانك ولا تبين تين قدام؟ عادي ترى أي أقدمك بديت روحك.
Feelings with others. I am doing this for the last 1 year. I'm trying to go through this
journey.
journey for discovering what affects me from childhood. And I don't remember the things in 8 years old. So I started asking my aunties, my sister, my brothers, everybody. But the thing is, what I need to ask, what exactly I have to ask them. I'm just asking, is my childhood was happy? I remember it's happy. So everybody saying because of whatever I'm going through, maybe something wrong was there. So I was just asking them if there is something wrong. But I was not specific about what is the wrong. Everybody was saying for me, everything was fine. So what is the question I have to ask to find?
I think the question is not for you to ask them to make a judgment about whether things are good or not good, but that if you could ask, tell me a story. Tell me the story you remember about me. And you know what? Okay. You'll know.
I ask most of the questions, like you said, when they telling the stories, when we sit in the families telling stories, all it is happy memory stories. Nobody's saying anything wrong. So that's what is.
So you know what? So what you're saying is that, okay, that's not going to maybe be your best resource, because everybody, I remember a long time ago, I worked with this woman, and she said, we had one big problem in our house, and that was that everything was perfect at all times, which of course is about the biggest lie that could ever exist in the history of the world.
Every family has good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, our childhood has everything, from happiness to sadness to craziness to anything. So I know this is where.
So I think that when people in your family, or people when you interview them, say everything was just perfect, it was just lovely, you have to say thank you very much and know that you're not going to learn a thing.
Yeah.
Because it's okay. I mean, people have.
And maybe they cannot even face it.
Because people have pride. They have. They don't want to dig up these memories themselves.
Okay.
I mean, I know, like my mother now she's elderly and she doesn't want to speak anymore about things. Okay. When she was younger, we could ask her questions, and there was a time she could speak her truth, but now she just wants to be at peace. She doesn't want to tell things.
Yeah.
And you know what? We have to respect that. We just have to respect that.
Is it 7:45?
Oh.
MashaAllah, time is
Yes.
flying. So I think we go back and ask, just think about it. How did they treat you? And you can just pick 2 or 3 people in your mind, and if you want to share, but how were you treated? Yeah.
What I remember from those days, my dad gave me the full freedom to do whatever I want. But it wasn't the direct member of my family who I remember that I have this kind of mad feeling. It's more like an anger feeling. It was like the extended family who is like, but she's a girl. She needs to behave. She should not jump. She should not participate here, or to speak, or to go out. And this is always like poking me. Like even now when I see them, I say, I just don't want this part of my family.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. You know, we have to think beyond our mother and father. We have to think about how there were huge influences from the extended family, from the community itself, which tribe you came from. There's many pieces to this thing, and you know, I've known people who actually, their research was they started to read everything they could find about the time that they were little. And suddenly, all kinds of things
Comes up.
would go like, oh, for gosh sake, this was happening when I was 8? And then, you know, you have to be a good researcher. Try this, try that.
And I think Amal is doing that, and I'm
Yeah,
very proud.
and good for you.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged, and
Keep going.
keep going, because I know that very often we, as children, I mean, do we know that there was some big financial crisis when we were 8 and that our family was falling apart and
No.
that, no, we don't know these kind of things.
These details we don't.
But if we knew that detail, we suddenly say, oh, this might have been why my, you know, father disappeared for a while, or you know, whatever it is.
and then
you know?
it makes sense.
Yeah, it starts to go, oh. So you, as we say, you start to connect the dots.
Correlate the actions and the feelings.
Yes, yes, it makes more sense. I remember I was in the school and high school, and I always blamed this person in my family for something she has done. And I remember the social worker, she just said to me one word, in Arabic, أعذريها. Give her, I don't know if it's excuse or give her the benefit of the doubt. I have to say, the whole thing changed. The whole thing changed because somebody just made me look at it differently.
So I think that's the important part. You know, we have to do the digging, and then we have to start looking at it from many angles. And we can't do that as a child, but this is how we can change our relationship to our childhood by being able to start to say, well, if I looked at it from this direction, I would feel quite differently about it. And then this starts to break all these things apart.
Okay.
So, anybody else like to share anything about their experience, as a child? You know, sometimes we're very well loved. Sometimes we're very well loved by.
Zain, you want to share something? I can see a smile there. I mean, how were you treated?
Maybe all my family said you are very crazy kids. And
Welcome to my club.
and I threw everything from the balcony and hit the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what.
Which is, you know, this is where I think we pick up. And the self-esteem goes down because you were always told you're crazy, you're rebellious, or you don't study well. I mean, words that we go through, right? Which word it stuck to your mind, Wadia?
I always have been put in the good girl
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
So I wasn't allowed even to do anything outside of the box because they already labeled Wadia as an angel.
And you lived the role.
And I had to live it. I didn't have the other option because I would be out of that role. So I always have to smile. I always had to be a bit
Polite.
Yeah, this is exactly what happened to me as well, because we're being built in this box, and we being treated as a perfect person. So we are not allowed to do mistakes. You're not allowed to do crazy things. Even
I
if you
was
think about
exact
it.
the opposite. I made so many mistakes. Yes,
I
wallah
believe
al-azim.
this is another way of abusing, because you're
Yeah.
not letting this child behave as a child. You're always labeling them or him or her by being perfect. Whatever they are not, whatever they are missing, the parents, unfortunately, what they missed in their life, they want you to be
To have it. Because they don't know better. So, Doctora, yeah, just 1 second. Yeah, yeah. It's not working.
of childhood, but I had to understand other my mother as well. But when I was a child, I wasn't an attractive child at all.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, I was at school where there are many students of, I would say, Syrian or Lebanese origin, so they are really attractive. I'm not at all of this kind.
You were not smart or labeled? ما ينسمع.
I was 10 years old when I have decided that I need to be always on the top of the students, one of the top students, because this is how people accept me, and this is how people maybe no, I would never. yeah. And I was like this all my life. Luckily, I was doing it the hard way, so I'm always telling my children now, I wasn't a very smart student, but I was a hardworking one. So just make extra effort sometimes in order to overcome an obstacle or something.
Yes.
But the problem is that it helped me attract attention, but it didn't solve the real problem that I'm feeling unattractive, I'm feeling that I'm not social
less
enough,
than.
and so on. So that took a lot. It was after having my first marriage, which was ended in a divorce very quickly, it was a disaster, that I started to rebuild myself. Not to say that my second marriage is a very successful one, but it's much better than the previous one. So I relate to that sometimes unresolved issues in childhood would reflect somehow when you're an adult.
I thank you so much, Doctora. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, because I think, you know, children do their very best to solve the problem, and most children try to solve the problem to become as perfect as they possibly can. They will do that at the expense of their own emotions. They will do that at the expense of having fun. They will just, because the need for us to be accepted in our families is the biggest thing. I mean, this is human beings. We have to be, and so we find our strategies. Sometimes we get rebellious and say, and sometimes we just work harder and harder and harder and harder to become perfect, 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 so that the comparisons will stop, so that we can gain the approval of our parents. And, you know, I don't know why this came to my mind just now, but women in your communities, much of the honor of the family rests on women's shoulders. So men can afford to not be too perfect, but women, you know, in many.
You have to be a great daughter. You have to be a great mother.
You have to be smart. You have to be,
Yeah.
I mean, the list
Absolutely.
that women must do, especially in this day and age, is formidable. And I often, in my readings and things, I've often thought that probably many of you have not really thought about how much you've carried on your shoulders since you
Yeah.
were children, about
Yes.
maintaining
Yes, absolutely.
the honor and the
Yeah.
pride of your families. And this is worth thinking about.
And then if you do one mistake, then you're always living in that shame and feeling disappointed and all over. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And there's a lot of drama in the families around if a woman makes a mistake, if a man makes a mistake. But when women make a mistake, it's remembered for a very long time.
Oh no, it's not even forgotten until you die.
Yeah, maybe not.
You know, they'll just say it and then say, "You remember?"
Yeah. So this is why, this is why we're talking about family and the community and things like that, because many times this squeezing ourselves down to carry that honor really means that we don't have the complete opportunity to even be emotionally in touch with ourselves. Because if we started to be emotional about it, we would explode. I know. That's my point. Yeah, that's the point. We're not allowed.
For example, for me, I ate my emotional. I ate them since I was a child. It was easier. It was
Just to eat.
I will just eat it away. This is what I found recently, that I've been eating my emotions away. Instead of trying to figure it out, instead of trying to understand it or name it, just eat it. Food is there.
Easy.
It's easy. It's available. It wouldn't talk to you. It wouldn't make any, it wouldn't refuse you. It wouldn't judge. You're always enough for food.
Yeah.
So just eat it. As simple as it is. For me as a child, this is the only solution I had. And I used it very well because you've been, you've been loved, you've been liked, you've been treated well, but on the other side, you've been threatened. You had a very high benchmark to work for. You've been compared to the whole world. يعني you were never enough. Until now, you're not enough. So until when?
Until you decided to end.
When not until I shoved it all above my shoulder, then I'm enough for me.
But but it's a complicated. Thank you for saying that, because you know that it is complicated. Like can you shrug off the place that women hold in this society? Can you shrug this off? No, not really. Not really. But you can absolutely be fully aware of it. And within it, you start to make some choices. I mean,
I think, I'm sorry, this is very important because we could dwell on this for 20 more years.
Absolutely.
But here comes to make some choices because we cannot just blame it and keep saying, I was compared, I was abused, I was this. We honor that, we embrace it, we understand it, but we need to make choices. And it's all up to you. You can make a bad choice, fair enough, because you're living in you.
So, the question is that when we ask this question about who hurt you as a child, who disturbed your most often, you know, immediately we think about our parents. But today, I'd rather that you thought about, you know, like we're talking about how the big, maybe an extended family, maybe the community itself, maybe a grandmother, maybe an aunt, maybe your girlfriend at school, maybe a teacher. Children are much more than just the daughter of their parents.
Yeah.
Much more.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we, those are the primary things, the relationships with the parents are the primary things that we need to think about and unravel. But that's not all that made you who you are today. Sometimes that's actually not the most important thing that formed your sense of being good enough, being good enough in many ways, good enough academically, good enough in behavior, good enough in, you know, being silent. There's a lot of good enough issues here.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing your memory work, don't just do it with your family members. Go farther than that. Think about the school you went to.
You know, nowadays, because a lot of people know me, I get messages from the girls who used to be with me in the school, which I don't remember, and they say, "We remember you used to do this. You remember you used to." They tell me, which I forgot. I mean, everybody remembers I was really full of life.
But you see, isn't it interesting that you forgot because your main memory of school was not positive?
No.
They thought that you were fun and crazy and
Yeah.
but you yourself. So it's interesting when people get messages, like if you looked up 3 of your schoolmates and say, you know, wouldn't it be interesting what they thought of you then?
Is it because those memories were negative? She just forget,
No, actually those were
I
positive.
remember the negative. They remember
The positive.
you forgot school.
No, I remember the school. I hated school because I had so many challenges sitting as a dyslexic. They didn't know what the hell this book was about. And if the teacher was not good, then I was screwed because I would not know. I hated math and Arabic and all that. I was very good at English. I don't know how, but I was very good at English and music. But I was very hyper. But because I didn't have anything to do, I didn't understand the teacher, so I had a lot of negative confusion. I was very confused because I used to think, how come I'm very good in some subjects if the teacher was good? Now I know.
My question was, Elaine, why do we tend to just erase that memory and just keep it somewhere at the back of our mind? Is it because those were like emotionally hard for us? Or is it because of age?
Or not
just
important.
go at the back of our mind?
I think, you know, we have a lot to learn about memory. We don't know so much about it, but I think what we do know so far is that there are people who, maybe because of their chemistry in their system, tend to remember negative things. Other people tend to remember positive things. Don't ask why, don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know why some things go up and some things recede. Some people have memory very much on a sensory level. You know, they remember sounds, they remember smells, they remember all sorts, and other people don't remember anything like that.
Yeah.
So memory is
Some people are very, very vivid.
yeah, neurologically, we have many, many things to learn about memory. I think as much as we know so far is, you know, you probably can say, I think I tend to remember all positive things. Don't judge yourself. Good for you. That's not a problem. Just know that it wasn't all positive because nobody had such a life as that.
But then I think sometimes the brain tends to block some things because maybe it's very painful. I mean, when I go back, really, to my first marriage, a lot of things I don't remember, or most of it I don't remember.
Right now, you choose not to. You could if you wanted to.
Okay, leave it to that.
But you don't want to, so there. That's okay. And so, and you know, negative, when negative memories haunt us, it means it was a trauma. And that trauma is knocking on your brain saying, would you just please deal with us? Because this is not going to fade away. Memories that are neither really good or really bad, they just fade into the distance. And we don't, you know, I mean, think of how million things we've kind of stored up and basically stored away, and we can only retrieve them if we really work hard at it, and some of it we'd never retrieve. If you asked me to retrieve what I knew about physics in grade 12, I would tell you that I would be unable to retrieve anything.
Exactly.
You know, but that's because I didn't care about physics anyway. But so we have the ability to bring some things back, but the ones that are here are the things that are the most important. One, if something haunts you, if a memory keeps coming back, then this is like you who
Like a
Yeah.
I'm here.
I'm here.
So
I'm here.
if this kind of memories coming back,
Yeah.
and every time you remember, and it means
And the other ones are where there's a complete blank. So sometime you might have to actually think about that.
I do. No, I do have my journey, and I really think, because I don't have a problem facing them.
How is our time, Ria?
Half an hour. We are 8:10, so we have.
Okay. And so the last question is, who is your best ally? Who was the person that you
حليفك
that
منو اللي كان
kind
يوقف
of
معك؟
strangely understood you and really saw you more than just the good girl? You know, who was that? Sometimes there's only one person.
Do you have one? Somebody when you were a kid, حليفك واقف وياك أو واقفة وياك, and were there for you? Your aunt? Okay, me too.
I'll tell you that one of my supports was books.
Books. Wow.
Books told me a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and so they were my ally, because for all my questions of why, so here I am, 77 just about, and I'm still reading books and still studying, because I still ask why, and
Is this ally has to answer, or you know that they love you and they comfort you?
yeah,
Like my aunt Shahla, she was for me, like she used to spoil me to death, even my grandmother, but because she died when I was young. But they were like spoiling me to death, but they really, I felt, until today, When I call her, she sings for me, welcoming me.
Do any of you remember people?
فاطمة يا بني حد كان واقف وياك ولا يحبك وانت صغيرة؟ Your sister.
Your sister?
Okay.
Yeah.
Amal, you had anyone? Your father. Noha? My dad. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Amal? You don't remember. Okay. Asia? Dad and grandma. And I know your dad, right? Yeah. Yeah. Aisha? Oh, interesting. What? قولي والله. You make me feel so bad. والله.
So sometimes, yeah, we think our...
Okay. Asahia? Dad. And books. Okay. Manan? Stepmother? Wow. And dad. Wow. Wow. Fatma? Oh, dad and Fatma. يا ولد. وديعة? Okay.
But I think drawing Captain Hair was a way to escape because I didn't trust anyone. I was so scared.
Iman? Oh, that's nice. Mana? Your father. Interesting. ها انتصار. You don't remember?
سوا.
ذكريني باسمك مرة ثانية. رنا. Your mother. Yeah, yes. Silwan? Your father. Diary? قولي والله.
Yeah, because sometimes our allies are, sometimes it's our diary. Some people it's,
Music could be music.
drawing. Sometimes it can be a pet that
يا
you
حليلهم
could tell all your
القطاوي.
troubles to, and they never said a word back to you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So
A pet? Your mother? Yes. So she was a supporter. Yeah. Yeah.
to really think through, and this is the reason I asked this question, is that ask yourself, what was it about that particular person
Wow.
that really got you?
Now you will make us cry.
Because the thing is that we can identify what hurts, who has hurt us, but the real way of moving forward in your life is to really understand where your strengths come from. And your strengths come from your allies.
جو منو كان معاك يوم انت كنت صغيرة واقف معاك ويحبك؟ Your dad. Okay.
So in our handouts, we have a little thing here, it's called the support map. And we're, do we have any time, do you think?
We will make time, yes.
And so, here it's saying parents, brothers and sisters, close friends, other family members, co-workers, bosses, maids. Interesting, maids.
Yeah,
We forgot about them.
Yes, of course, nannies were like really a big part of our lives.
Teachers, a therapist, a life coach. There's all kinds of people who,
And
you know, maybe you didn't have that when you were 8 years old, but somewhere along the line, you went, now this is the thing that I needed. And so I'm going to invite you to just take 1 minute or two, just to look at this thing and say to yourself, where is, who's my best support? Who actually,
Used to be or now?
now,
Now.
yeah.
Now.
So you have the map, and you're in the middle. So that's you. And then you go around it, and there's some examples, but then you could just say, you know, no matter how difficult our life is, how busy we are, there are few people that we can, صح رنا? We can say, I have this person, so if they're there for me when I call, when I need, or when. So I think, like, you know, let's go beyond just 1 or 2 people. I mean, that we think of. Let's go beyond, yeah.
And the interesting thing is that if you say to yourself, I only maybe have 1 or maybe 2. This is a big clue for you to say, I need to really identify what support system I need, and then go back to your childhood and say, that one person, what did they do? What were they like? Why did they see me and the other person didn't see me? Or
And
they
what did
got
they
me.
give me?
Yeah, and what did they give you? Because if it's very hard to fill in that you have a support system now in your present life, it means that you've got to go on the search. You know, I'm telling you
And make
that,
one.
and find this support. Find it. Go all over the place looking for it. Just like when we were saying about the memories that we have to do our research and we have to go here and there and look under the table and everything. In this, our job is to really look carefully at what is it that we need to
build the support
to build
system.
up yourself. And, you know, maybe when you were young, an aunt would give you just a little hint about how to deal with life.
Yeah, yes.
You know, or they might have said, don't pay any attention to them, they're all they're all just annoying, forget about it.
Yeah.
Just ask yourself, what did they say to you? What did they do that made that difference? Because that's what you have to duplicate now.
Yeah, I mean, when you really think, I mean, like I'm thinking about my aunt. She gave me pure love. Like she would really, like I feel, she would embrace me and she will just love me.
Because she didn't care if you could do school or not.
Not at all.
It didn't make a difference to her.
And still she is the same.
And
Until
so,
now, she's the same. Yes.
now,
Habibti.
not everybody has that person in their life where
Yeah.
they've had unconditional love. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally never had such a thing. And, you know,
But
some
you know,
people...
strangely enough, even my mother never told me you're stupid.
No,
She used to say, oh, Hala doesn't like to study. Oh, you know, but was not like you're stupid. But because I felt, because I was compared.
yeah, at school. So
At
it was
school.
at school.
And in the house, like Hamid was much, like he was so good at school. He used to make me feel terrible. Not even him making, just seeing him. He gets the best grade, and I was like the worst.
So, it's about really looking at, you know, when some of you said your dad, what is it?
What was it about?
What was that about? What was he saying to
Think
you?
about it, Naha. What was it about your dad? He held your back. In which way?
Whenever I'm in trouble, whenever he sends a name, even if I don't talk about it, he would come and
So what you're saying is that he could anticipate your needs. He could read your face. He was able to, you didn't have to have a lot of verbal things. He could do this because he could read you.
And the minute I say something, he gives me all the options. You want this, I'm with you. You want that. Once upon a time, I had a problem with my husband. I was really upset. So I went to him, and I didn't talk in front of my mom. I didn't want to get over it. And I said, this guy, he's done this and this and this, and I can't take it. He said, you want a divorce? Oh, no, I don't think so. That's the only word he said. And I went back home with a big smile on my face.
Well, I think
One of the support system changes is that the people we had when we were young change. I mean, like my children are my support system, one of the support system, which we didn't have of course, when you're young. So I think we need to look how your life changed too, and who did come in your life, which of your friends will be support system. Interesting.
So, go ahead.
Yeah.
If I look back to what my support system was when I was younger, and sort of the journey that I've been through, at this point in life, I actually find that it was precisely that support system that's still there for me today. But I had forgotten that along the way somewhere. And I think sometimes, I mean, you pick up new support systems too. Hala is a support for me too. But there are those that you forget were the support for you. And as you go through the journey, if you look back to them and you reconnect, you realize that actually they still have that unconditional love for you. They still have that emotion and feeling that they had for you whenever you needed them. All you really need to do is just reach out to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this exercise is really good to make you think, who is my support system? Do I have one? Do I need more? Do I make it? What do you want? Like, your person when you were a child was...
I didn't have the support system, but looking now, I do, and it's very interesting. I think when I make the intention, then I found her and a couple of other supportive systems, and even you learn, like, there are things which will support you to just go on.
Yeah. I really believe friends can be a great support system. Really.
I
good
think,
friends.
yes, because one of the things that women are very good at connecting. And so women can be each other's support system. And so, people who have a sister, maybe sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. But women and women's friendships
it's amazing.
is absolutely some of the best support you can ever get.
If you have a good friend.
Yes,
Yeah.
because in many ways, you've traveled a similar road, and if you're not judgmental of each other and you're not competing,
Yeah.
where you have to
Yeah.
be better or prettier or this or that or whatever, or richer or whatever it is, then women are, generally speaking, psychologically, each other's best support.
And I think in support system, like, what, Leah? I have 5 minutes? Okay. In support system, I categorize people in different things. Like, okay, you know all, you know everything, you know too much. So you are the full support system. Like, if I need any area in my life, then I have support system when it comes to work, which I speak to Fatma. And, I think loud with her, and then we decide something. Then I have support system if I want to financially to learn about. And I have support system in different areas. Just very few different needs and different wants and different categories. يعني مثلا if I just want to go blah 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 blah, I call Silwan. And she just like, can you talk? Like, yes. Then I speak and then she listens and then she tells me, you know, I speak half an hour and then she says, and why is that? And then that's enough for me to think about something else. So I think if you categorize, you know, you don't expect anybody in this to do it all. You cannot be a chef and be a doctor and then be, a banker and be, I think you will make your life much easier if you say, this friend is for this, my son's, like there are things you can tell your children, but not everything you can tell your children. There are things you can tell your mother, but not everything you can tell your, don't and don't put it a burden on the other person too. And I think, as Elaine said, if you choose a good friend that is not jealous of you or competing with you, I think I've been always very lucky with friends, really, really lucky with friends, I don't have a friend that says, I have my friends, they come with me and everybody stops them and they don't have an issue. They enjoy it with me. So I think, go back to this paper, take it with you. You may change it in 1 week. You might change it in 1 year. But fill it up.
So I think that, have we done 5 minutes?
I think we'll always go beyond, how
anyway,
we are.
I want to a little bit close by saying that we can't change our childhood, but we can change how we relate to it.
Yeah.
This is our choice. So I would suggest, here's my suggestions. Go in your photo albums and find a new photograph of yourself that you haven't seen for a very long time or maybe never. And look at that photograph and make up a story.
Silwan, don't, please.
Just make up a story.
Yeah.
Make up a story about, and make it as crazy a story as you can think of.
Thank you.
Because I think that we need to teach ourselves that we can choose to remember what we want. We can tell our story any way we want. I'm writing a piece right now in my writing course, and I was writing away about my memories around my mother and blah, 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 blah. And then I got up the next day and said, well, that's an interesting. And then I wrote the very same story, but telling it from all my relationship with my father.
Wow.
Well, you'd wonder if it was the same story, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Because really, it depends on, my story with an authoritarian father and how I would deal with him. My mom was very depressed, and so I was, my relationship with her. I looked at the story and said, well, I wonder, which one shall I choose?
Yes.
Or shall I not choose either one of them? Mm-hmm. Because I'm more than the daughter of a depressed mother. I'm more than a daughter of an authoritarian father. I'm more than that for sure, because I had books. And because I had an aunt that had beautifully long red fingernails that I admired greatly. These things were just practically for my life. If I choose to say, no, that aunt with the long red fingernails had just as much impact on me as my
Father.
very bossy father.
Yeah.
And so
I think if you go back to like I did, look at this.
Yes? Yes?
Can you see? So I was in India.
Yeah?
This was in India, in Bombay. And I was with my mother and my half sister and my niece. And that shows how naughty I was, even making faces when I was taking pictures. So I think it's very nice if you go back to your photo albums. Maybe, Amal, that will help you a bit to remember something surrounding it. I think you're trying too hard, Amal. I think if you let go, it will come. Because you so want to remember.
And the other thing is that if you are carrying hurt, if you are carrying sadness, anger, you know what? You get to say, actually, I'm putting that memory over there. I'm not forgetting it. I'm just putting it over there because I'm going to concentrate on this memory for the time being. We get to say, I'm going to pay attention here, not because this has gone away. It's not gone away. We just have decided to put it to the side.
Until we deal with it.
Unless, and then we deal with it when we are ready to say, okay, I feel strong now. I'm bringing this out. Let's have a look at it. Not when we feel weak, not when we feel this is, and not when we're alone. We need to do this
with someone.
With someone. So we often think that if we...
Yeah.
Ready? Very good question.
I think when you become curious, and when you decide, let me do a little research, then you're ready.
And maybe when it haunts you a lot.
And when it haunts you, definitely.
Comes
definitely,
back,
definitely.
comes back.
If it haunts you, then start finding a way to bring it out. When we bring out painful memories, I think we have to immediately jump through a whole chain of events where we're supposed to solve it, and then we forgive everything, and everything is perfect, which is not how it works at all. The reason that we bring out difficult memories is we get unstuck. Difficult, haunting memories are like they make us stuck in a sort of a circle.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we can just break that circle
And look at it differently
and look
or
at it
solve
differently,
tear it apart
Yeah.
with someone.
yeah,
It has, I mean, for me it was Elaine that I had to open up all my pain, all my...
So I have therapist, and she said just forget about it. I have terrible memory, bad memory, but she said just leave it away, so not to deal with it.
the thing is that when people say forget about it, they might be saying this is not the right moment to look at this, but that's a different message than saying pretend that never happened. You know, when we say pretend that didn't happen,
Yeah.
well, that's not going to work. Yeah, because sometimes it's not the right time to deal with it.
Maybe it's too much for you to handle.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, and
it will...
and
تنهارين
and,
يعني.
and so it's saying, well, okay, if it is too painful right now, that doesn't mean that 5 years from now maybe it would be less painful. or maybe you can add something so that it's more bearable to speak about. But there is no such thing in a haunting memory. There's no such thing as forgetting it.
You don't forget.
No.
I mean, personally, I think if we have the right person, to me, I believe, bring it up on the table, cry your heart out, have all that pain and embrace it, and say, you know what, it's painful, but I'm going to work through it. We had children, we had to go through labor, you went through it. In that moment you think, oh my God, I cannot bear this. But then you're out. And I really believe, with my own experience, I always wanted to solve it. I needed to learn to understand myself and have peace with what happened to me. And the memory will never go away, but I came with good deals with it. And now I can talk about it with much less pain. We need to talk.
So the last handout that we have is looking back and looking forward. And
this is very interesting.
And so, again, this is something to just take home. It's a way of journaling, in a way. Looking back, I was this kind of a child. I didn't have, I thought. So this is just a way of sort of stimulating.
Yeah, and making it more easy to understand, putting some...
And
I know you do.
who you were isn't necessarily, I am this now. You're many things more than the things that happened to you in your childhood. So you can decide how much of that is going to be me and how much is it not going to be me.
And how much it will affect me now in my daily.
And what you needed when you were 8 or 14 is not the same as what you need now.
Yes.
So this is to help you to see that those things and those memories and those feelings do not have to drive your life, because you need different things now than you did then.
So when you were 8 or 14 or 20, you had different mindset, right? And you didn't know much. Now you know better. So what affected you back then is because you were a kid. You didn't understand.
So if you say, I thought I was not good enough, then you can say, looking forward, I know that I'm absolutely good enough.
Yeah. I thought I was crazy.
And I'm
But
not
I am
crazy.
not crazy. Actually, I love being crazy in a different way.
Yeah, but that's because you redefined crazy.
Yes.
So I think that you've been such good participants. Thank you so much.
Before we end this, we're going to talk, we get some questions. Today is, as I said in the beginning, I really want you to feel uncomfortable. Not because of anything, because once you go out of your comfort zone, you would not come all the way here because just to have fun. You're here because you want some answers. And some people maybe got the answer, maybe not. Some people will get it maybe after a week and maybe after a year, like it happens in my trips. Some people get it this quickly. Some people tell me after a year, now we got it. So it depends. But today is not magic pill. today is to make you think, so when my cousin told me this, or my mother put me off, or my teacher, make you think, you looked at it this way, maybe, if you allow yourself and say, let me look at it this way. Maybe there is more into it. Maybe I didn't understand it well. I am of the people that I believe dig in, go through pain. You know what? Pain upgrades you. Pain upgrades you. When you've been through pain, you have more empathy. You have more sympathy. You feel people more. Rather to say, yes, I know what you're saying, but I don't know what you've been through. So I always believe you dig it out and look into your pain and have someone to help you out.
And I would say that the word pain is one of those mysterious words. And if we went back to the very first piece in the session, there is no emotion called pain. There's emotions, but there is emotional, what we call emotional pain. And usually it is a combination of anger,
sadness,
and fear.
Fear.
That's usually what it is. Not always. Sometimes it's some other combination. Yeah. Pain, emotional pain, is a combination of some of these emotions that are so tightly bound that you don't know which word to use. Try to move past this general word, because that's just a general construct. Yeah. And it keeps us from...
And open it up.
And open it up. Tear it apart. Make yourself choose these emotions. Make yourself choose these words, and even you'll say, doesn't fit, doesn't fit, doesn't fit, doesn't fit. It does fit. It does. It's being able to say, okay, if I was very much shamed at the same time as I felt very, very angry, at the same time that I was fearful that I was going to be, thrown out of the family. That's pain.
Yeah, I think pain can be known as so many different emotions.
But the tearing apart is what will lead you to the next step. Because once you understand your emotion, your next step was that your memories will start to expand. You'll be surprised when you kind of come to grips with what you felt about a particular small thing. If you can really own what you felt, you'll be surprised how the next memory will come, and the next one, and the next one. And that builds up how you can see your story, the story of your childhood. Then you can say to yourself, is this a story I want to tell myself for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, because this is a painful, difficult, not positive experience for me, then this is the reason to go to the next step.
So it should not be your story, because sometimes we take something happened to us
and
we make it our story.
Yeah.
But if I take that experience away from you, who are you? I remember a friend of mine said she read an article about this woman that she was raped. And then she went around all over to talk about what happened to her and when she was raped. And then she said, one day I said, what am I without my story? She didn't have anything. So she made her experience her story. her, which not necessarily what happened to us is us. I mean, it's a part of us, but it should not be your story. So who are you without that story that we think we've been through? And I think it will make you today think, it's Bismillah, just starting to dig it in. I really thank you so much for coming and going through this painful, uncomfortable, I would say, journey. And if you feel uncomfortable, I really want to hug you, because really I think you're going towards the right way. And then I think, go after whatever you feel, deal with it. You will solve it, because I had a story. I've been through so many things in my childhood, but I tore it apart with her. I liberated myself. And if I can do it, believe me, anybody can do it. Thank you so much.
So you want to go, anybody has a question?
Any questions? Yes, no.
When do you know, how do you know that you're okay with those? Yes. Okay. Very good question.
The painful parts, and I mean all of these emotions, especially of the childhood, teenage experiences, even in adulthood. When do I know I'm really in peace with them and I'm okay?
I would say my experience would say that we're never 100% over anything, but it fades into a very light shadow in our life.
Subtle.
Yeah, and we can think about something and we might not be totally neutral, but we're pretty neutral about it. It doesn't evoke huge emotion anymore. And
I think that's very important. It doesn't evoke it doesn't affect your daily life and.
I don't think life is not something that we're trying to cure.
Yeah.
It isn't, we never were ill in the first place, really. But we get going down some big paths, and in, our storytelling to ourselves, sometimes we do have the opportunity to tell our story in many ways.
Yes.
Does it mean that the first story is completely wrong? No.
We just look at it differently.
We're just saying there was this story, but there was also that story, and there was also that story.
Yes.
And this story then gets into a better proportion. It's not that it's the only story. Because like the example you used as, when someone has a rape experience, there's a period of time where it is the only thing they can think about. And that's understandable. But if that remains the only thing they can think about for 5 years, 10 years.
It's the haunting.
It's the haunting then. And then that really says, I've now confined myself to only one story. What we're saying here is, build your stories, make more stories, change the story.
And maybe make more happy stories.
Yeah, make happy ones, face into ones that aren't so good, but don't get stuck in one story.
Yeah.
Because that's what haunts
because it
you.
can and it becomes like you feel you're a victim.
Yeah.
And poor me. And you know what? We, as she said, Elaine said, we look at it differently and we can really think about it differently. And this point you said, build a lot of fun memories. I have decided years now that I look for joy. I try to have fun as much as I can. Whether if it's a lunch with a friend, or running somewhere, or calling, or having a coffee, anything brings me joy. I make memories. I make memories with my children. I make memories with my friends. I make memories with, and I want to make my life full of beautiful memories. Did I forget? No, it doesn't go away. But it is what it is. Sorry? Hey, because I solved it or I dealt with it. To me, I really believe you should deal with.
So there's two things that go on at the same time. In a way, we have to face into difficult memories. We have to make sure that we're telling many stories, not just one story all the time, so that we don't get ourselves in a
Dawama, yeah.
circle. And at the same time, as Hala says, tonight's a memory. Tomorrow you can create another one. And the day after that you can create another one. And if for 10 years in a row you've worked hard at creating positive memory, positive things, building a support system. If you didn't have a good support system when you were a child, building that, working on it. Do you know what? Pretty soon, your relationship with your childhood will be, that was then, and that was then.
Yeah.
And that's, you're not invested.
You're not stuck there.
Yeah, you're not stuck there. You're not invested even in that. You're invested in really creating memory, because in memory, I don't know if I can say this quickly enough, but in memory, things build on top of each other. And when we get stuck, it's like we stop our building blocks. So, if you put another memory, like, for instance, if you have a memory of being very, very lonely, for instance, as a child, if you build for 10 years, I'm just using 10 as a number, if you build on top of that, the loneliness, the memory of that shifts and fades and fades. If you don't build on it, it's as real today as it was when you were 8 years old.
So I think one thing, I picked up this word, you really need to invest. Make your life a project and say, I'm going to invest in my life now. I'm going to make a lot of good memories, little, big, fun, as much as I can. You will. You always do. If I say I don't find, I will not find. If I come into this room and I say, you know what, I'm not going to like anything in this room, believe me, you would not like anything. And I'm not saying it's a magic. I'm just saying we're built thinking negative, like, what if I don't find a good friend? What if I don't find a good support? We do. It's natural comes. But you know what you say? If this person found, I'm sure I will. That's one of the things I used to say to myself, because when I was learning how to drive in America, I was 20 years old and I was so scared, and I said, and then this is what I say, if all these people learned how to drive, I'm sure I can. If she has a good friend, I'm sure there is somebody in this universe, for God's sake, billions of people, there is no one for you. There is. But open the door. Today is opening the door. Opening the door to your childhood. Face it. Look at it. Dare it. Solve it. Then you say, you know what? Today, I'm an adult. I want to invest in myself. حبيبة قلبي. قولي بالعربي.
أنا أوقف الحين في هذا العمل وأنا أنظر للماضي أو طفولتي الأخرى. شكرا لطفولتي الصغيرة. شكرا ليش؟ لأن خلت مني إنسانة قوية صبورة، خلت مني أتعلم أدور الأفضل لأطفالي لنفسي. فأنا أوقف الحين أقول شكرا.
She says, I
stand today and I say thank you for my tough, difficult childhood, because it made me who I am today. It made me stand on my feet and be better to my children and to my friends and to learn more. أنت حبيبة القلب. أنت حبيبة القلب. نحن اللي نشكرك يا قلب.
So this is making difficult stories into lessons for oneself and using difficult stories to make good life. I think that that's because of your courage to say the bad story is not going to be me.
يعني أنت قررتي بكل شجاعة تقولين القصة المؤلمة مو بأنا. استوالي بس مو بأنا.
I'm
أنا
more
غير.
than that.
أنا
You're more
أكثر
than
من
that
كذي.
story.
أنا أعظم من كذي. حبيبة قلبي شكرا. شكرا.
Thank you.
Okay, my makeup is okay. قالت لي عايشة كان قلتي لنا ما نجيب ولا شيء ولا رموش ولا. I really think first I need to thank the people online. Thank you so much for being with us. This is our first online. I love you all. I'm so happy you joined us in this journey. And this is just the beginning. And thank you, each one of you. Thank you, Elaine. I don't want to cry, because you're leaving tonight, and that's another thing. You know, I don't think there is any word for me to say. I think you know how much I love you. You know how much I'm grateful. And I learn from you all the time. Oh.
And I learn from her, and I learn from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.